All right, everybody, why don't we grab a seat here? We'll get started. Welcome, welcome. Glad you're here. Glad you're making your way in slowly, surely. That's right. It doesn't bother me at all. Yeah, no. Hey, let me just remind you of a couple things that are coming up. One, this evening we are having a gathering at JB's Pizza. We've invited the community to this, and because we want this to be a larger conversation than just one that we are having. And there are folks coming, we know, that are not normally a part of the branch, and that's really lovely and wonderful. So if you'd come a few minutes early, that would be helpful in creating a welcoming environment for folks who are going to be joining us, and it gives you a chance to get first dibs at the pizza, and that's not a bad deal, you know. So that's tonight. We'd love to have you come. Branch Students is also today, happening right after we meet over at CJ and Elizabeth's home. I don't think there's anything special necessarily to say about that they need to do other than attend. That would be the thing for. I'm sorry, what? How about an address? Well, I believe it's in multiple places, but I don't have it off the top of my head. CJ, what's your address? Okay. (1733) Belden, Belden Avenue. Got it. Okay, phew. That's important. That is an important piece of information, no doubt about it. And then we do have a meal train set up for the Remptima family. It is not live yet. We're waiting to hear from Deidre. If you don't know, this week we, really just a couple days ago, it feels like time is being very strange this week. But on Friday there was a memorial for Jeff Remptima. And so it's been a long week. It's been a hard week. I think for us that's true as a community that loved Jeff. But, you know, obviously for the Remptima family, for Deidre's family. So one way that we're going to extend love to them in a tangible way is provide food over a number of weeks. And again, we're just waiting for Deidre to say, hey, now's a good time to start this. And so when that happens, we'll let you know that it's live and you can sign up through the normal ways that we do that. If you want to drop Deidre a note, maybe you don't have her contact information, just see Teresa or myself if that's something that's been on your mind or your heart. Yeah, you know, it could be a little while before we see them in this space. It's hard to get back into what was normal, and so you might not have a chance to do it face-to-face for a little while. So just let us know if you need contact information for them. One more announcement. Yesterday, my sister-in-law, Janelle DeBlay, went into the hospital unexpectedly. She was having a lot of pain yesterday in her abdomen, and they discovered that she has something blocking blood flow to one of her kidneys. And in fact, it looks like most of one of her kidneys is no longer viable. The blood flow, well, right, when you lose blood to anything in your body, it's not good. They don't know why. So they're running a lot of tests to determine why that has happened and then what might need to happen as a result. Her pain is being managed right now, which is obviously good news. But she's there at Blodgett and could be for a little while. It's just all a lot of unknowns at the moment. So we wanted to let you know about that too. And if you want to reach out to them, I'm sure they would appreciate hearing a note, a text, from you if you think of doing that. So it's it's been a heavy week, and it doesn't I'm waiting for the reprieve, and it hasn't seemed to come. And I wonder what you've had this week, outside of these things that we've talked about here. My guess is that you've had challenging things come your way. I also hope and expect that you had wonderful things come your way this week, and that you had moments of laughter and joy. In other words, that life was life in all of its fullness and complexity. And I want to invite the band up because we're going to sing a song here to start. The first words, I think this is in the first verse, Brian, if you'd put them up. We're going to sing these in just a second. We bring what we have, would you meet us here? I just want to highlight those words because when you're singing a song, the song just keeps moving, right? And you're on to the next words, and you're on to the next words. And I just want to draw your attention to these to say that you are invited always when you come here to bring what you have, to bring who you are, the joy and the struggle, all of it. And we're going to do that in song right now. So let me invite you to stand as we sing this together.
By our feet, we just really want to trust you, so we bring what we have. Would you meet us here? Lord, you have told but you are faithful. So we fall into you. We know you'll raise us up. Lord, you have told us you're for us, even when we don't understand. And we are leaning on that and we are leaning on that promise, believing you are who you said. Lord, you have told us you're for us, even when we don't understand. And we are leaning on that promise, believing you are who you said. Believing you are who you said. Believing you are who you said you are.
Hard to believe. Again, time playing tricks. It is October 6th today, and that means, of course, that tomorrow is October 7th. And if you didn't know, one of my jobs is working for our denomination to bring people to Israel and to Palestine, and to do educational work here in the States around the conflict that has been going on, obviously, for now a very long time. And I just wanted to take a few minutes here to mark this, what is terrible, heartbreaking anniversary. But I want to begin by telling you some stories of beauty. Because this is a beautiful place. Maybe you have some sense of that already. But I have some pictures and videos here of some spots, Brian, if you could put them up, that just maybe remind us for a moment of how lovely this place is. Even in the desolate south of Israel, there are these gorgeous natural caverns and canyons carved out by eons. You can go to the next one, Brian. There's beautiful, of course, architecture and historical buildings kind of everywhere you turn, it would seem. You can go to the next one, too. It's just kind of beauty upon beauty upon beauty. Christian sites, as that one was, Muslim holy sites, Jewish holy sites. It is just one after another. Beautiful places, filled with, of course, beautiful people. When I was there in February of this year in the city of Hebron, which is a real flashpoint and has been for some time in this conflict, we met this group of Palestinians who do their best to document what is happening in this city, because one of the things that has happened in Hebron over the decades now is that a whole host of checkpoints have been set up, checkpoints that only Palestinians need to go through. And it's really, they're checkpoints meant to be harassing. They're meant to make life difficult. And they work quite well. So even kids, young kids, like the kids in this room, walk to school, but they have to go through checkpoints to get there, and sometimes even they are harassed. And so these folks will stay at these checkpoints, and they'll document what happens. They'll write it down, they'll take pictures, and then they turn it in to the authorities who are supposed to be monitoring these things. Does anything happen? Usually no, but they're doing their best to offer what protection and cover they can. Beautiful people taking risks, trying to do what they can to bring safety, ultimately to bring peace. On the next slide is a picture from 2017, my first trip to Israel and Palestine. It's Bethany and myself, and there, just being blocked. We didn't take many pictures this evening, we kind of forgot. But this is with a woman named Sarah. Her husband Malachi had us over to their house for dinner. They're a Jewish couple. They've lived in Israel really almost since its beginning. Bethany met her at a psychology conference Sarah was here in the States for this conference, and Bethany and she were chatting, and hey, we're headed to Israel soon. Oh, no way. Why don't you make sure that we connect when you're there? And so we did. And these are two people who their whole lives have been working to be voices of peace, voices of resistance. People who are saying, this way that we are, this path that we are on of violence and retaliation, which leads to more retaliation, it is not going to bring us the future that anyone wants. And they're very brave people, very kind people. This final slide is a picture of some Palestinian youth when I was there just about a year ago. And they were able to dance despite the real difficulty, obviously, of the war. They live in a refugee camp in Bethlehem. It doesn't maybe look like a refugee camp. That's a building, and you might think of tents when you think of refugee camps, but the refugee camps in Palestine have been around for 75 years. They are not really refugee camps, but that's how they're designated still. And the UN is taking care and providing services in those places because that's what we've told the UN to do. And these people live in very, very dense areas because, of course, they've had children over 75 years, and there's nowhere to build out and no legal way to buy land as a Palestinian, and so you just try and add maybe a level to your home, or you try and build in the alley, or you do whatever you can, you know. This is a place of great beauty, of beautiful landscapes, of beautiful architecture, of beautiful people, and I want us to remember that. Because so often when we think of this place, we think of things that are not beautiful. We think of the difficulties, and we're going to talk about those in just a second. But I wanted to show you those beautiful things. And I wanted the kids to be in the room too, because maybe it gives them a little taste of a place halfway around the world that they get to learn a little bit about. But we're going to let the kids go now and head downstairs if they would like to for Branch Kids. And before they go, we're going to do what we do every time they leave us, and we are going to give them a blessing that's up here on the screen. And so as they're making their way to the back, let's say these words together as we bless them as they go. Ready? May your time together be filled with wonder, joy, and friendship. You are loved. We'll see them in a little bit. So I have a slide here with some statistics of the last year, the results of the last year, and I'm not going to even go through these numbers. They show the number of Israelis killed and injured, those in Gaza killed and injured, those in the West Bank killed and injured. We now need another column for Lebanon, right? I'll just say that when you add up all these numbers, you end up with over really about 150,000 lives that have been forever changed by this war, between the injured and those who are dead. It's pretty staggering. In Gaza, estimates are that 90% of all infrastructure has been reduced to rubble. Try and imagine if 90% of Grand Rapids' infrastructure, buildings, schools, markets, hospitals, you name it, was now just rubble. We can't imagine that. It's too big to imagine, I think. On that next slide, though, I like the way that Parents Circle is talking about this year anniversary. Parents Circle is an organization of Israelis and Palestinians who come together and work for peace and nonviolence in this conflict. They are Israeli and Palestinian family members who've lost loved ones to the conflict. And they have made a choice, instead of in their loss and in their pain choosing anger and revenge, they've chosen peace and reconciliation as much as possible. And they're talking about how all of these lives, every life, a universe. Christians might say it this way: every life made in the image of God, created with remarkable potential and beauty. Every life. And we're going to talk this morning, we're going to have just a little bit of space to think about a future where there's mutual flourishing. So often in this conflict, and really in almost any conflict, we love to pick a side and then demonize the other. The work that Josh and I do in Israel and Palestine is to partner with organizations who are trying to say, no. Every life a universe. Mutual flourishing. Israelis and Palestinians flourishing. That's the future that we need to chase. It feels incredibly distant, maybe even impossible, but we have to keep chasing after it. I want to pause here, though, and lament. Bethany's going to lead us in a lament prayer that we're going to say. She's going to read a bit, and then we'll all read a bit together. Because I do think it's important for us, when we come kind of face to face with the realities of this conflict, to lament them and to do our best to name what is true and how our hearts break over it.
Let's read this together. God who appears in darkness, are you present at every death? God who walks with wilderness wanderers, are you moving to preserve the life of Palestinians? God who is present with those who suffer, God who stands as first witness to history. Will you teach us to entangle our histories, our oppressions, our diasporas together so that we can stand before one another? God who plants gardens, who lovingly shapes humans in your image. Will you protect your creation, its rivers, its oceans, its plants, all its creatures. God of peace and justice,
Lament does not provide a lot of answers. Just to say that out loud. When you read the laments in the scriptures, it's not like it's a resolving of the difficulty. It is simply and profoundly a crying out. So we do that together. I also want to invite us to enter into a posture of confession together, because I've come to learn that as Americans, we can't escape this conflict. The money that we send via our tax dollars plays a pivotal role. It just does. And so there's that to consider. And then as we're just thinking more broadly about mutual flourishing in this conflict, and think about the conflicts in your life with your neighbors, your coworkers, people you love, people you don't love. There's probably some things that we need to own up to. So we're going to watch this video, which is produced by a group called Telios. They are working for peace in Israel, Palestine, and they've created this video of confession for this anniversary. Let's watch this together.
Teacher, which is the greatest commandment?
Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself."
This October 6, we commit ourselves to peace, reconciliation, and nonviolent co-resistance to injustice.
We choose to be neighbors to all.
Rejecting the trap of enemy making.
We own our agency and responsibility to join Jesus in the building of his kingdom.
And the transformation of violence into flourishing.
Let us pray for the people of the Holy Land.
And commit ourselves to be the allies of all those who are working to end the siege and destruction of Gaza and to return the hostages.
Let us confess the things we have done as Americans and as Christians to help perpetuate decades of injustice and harm.
Let us also confess the things we have not done.
and to repent of our silence in the face of what experts have called an unfolding genocide in Gaza.
Let us acknowledge our contributions to anti-Semitism and Islamophobia
and commit ourselves to loving all of our neighbors as ourselves.
Let us denounce and resist violence in all its forms
and grieve with all who mourn.
Let us come together to be a people of peace,
Justice.
and nonviolence, and to build the possibility of mutual flourishing for all the people in the Holy Land.
Palestinians and Israelis.
Jews, Christians, and Muslims.
Teacher, which is the greatest?
I want to give you a chance to just reflect for a moment on what you may want to consider for yourself. And I had started this morning to pass these out, and then I got sidetracked, and so Teresa's going to help finish. These are just little pieces of paper because sometimes it's helpful to have something tangible to do when we're thinking about big things and complex things. And so I'm just inviting you to consider mutual flourishing in this conflict, and again in any conflict. Any place in this world where you see a taking of sides, where you see one group demanding their way with no regard for the other. And again, this might be very personal. It might be happening in your own life. So that paper has a couple of prompts on the back if it's helpful. I'm just going to give you a minute to reflect and to think about that, to write something down if you'd like. And then we're going to have a time of greeting here following that moment of silence. And if you would like, just as an act of, again, laying something down, which is what confession is, there is this cross that's in this back corner of the room. And I invite you to consider perhaps taking whatever you have written and just laying it at the foot there, at the base of that cross. You don't have to do that. You might prefer to take your piece of paper home as a reminder to you. But if it would be helpful, that would be one thing you could do during this time of greeting. But first, let's pause. Let's be quiet. Let's consider what we may need to lay down or let go of or ask for here around this conflict or around anything that we see in this world. Let's take a few minutes to consider that together. Certainly weighty things this morning that we are considering together. I'm grateful to be a part of a community that is willing to do that. Let me kind of close this time, and then again we'll move into a time of greeting each other with this vision that comes from the end of the Bible. The writer of Revelation has this vision, and again, right at the end come these words, "Behold, I am making all things new." And there's this imagery of a city coming down from heaven making its home here on an earth that's been remade. The leaves of the tree provide healing for the nations. There's no need for light of any artificial source because that's how close God is, and that light is always available and present. That is the promise of where this is moving. It doesn't always feel like that is possible, that vision. But we do our best to orient ourselves to it, to lay down what we need to lay down so that we're not burdened by those things anymore that are pulling us in the wrong direction, and then to turn. That's what repent means, by the way, to turn. We turn towards what is good and beautiful. So hold that vision here in the days ahead. You're free to move around. I know a little bit of a transition here to make, because again, we're carrying such weighty things here to begin this morning. But what could we possibly need more when we are carrying heavy things than each other? Than to hear about what the week was like, to laugh about something that happened at our kids' school, or to catch up about that trip that we took. We need that sort of interaction always, but maybe especially in moments like these. So let's stand up. Let's find someone this morning to say hello to. Let's catch up here for a few minutes, and then we'll continue on with the morning.
All right, friends, I'm going to invite you to find your seats. Wow, that was fast. Y'all quieted it down fast today. It is good to be together and to share joyful things. And like Chris said, when we're carrying so many things, it's good to do the normal, like just check in with each other, right? I had a lot of really normal things yesterday, like doing some projects outside and cleaning the shower drain and things that I would normally maybe complain a little bit about. But the return to a couple of normal rhythms in life was really good after a hard week. So this rhythm is also really, really good to return to after a long week. So we're glad you're here today. Mutual flourishing takes a lot. Takes a lot of love, doesn't it? A lot of love that is setting down our own selves and our own things and picking something else up, like Chris just talked about. We're going to keep talking about that a little bit today, and we're going to do it in the area of divine fruit. This is what we're going to call this today. So we've been talking a lot about love lately and about how loves are all interconnected, that love of God and neighbor and self are all connected. And we took some time to practice that last week. And then today we wanted to talk a little bit about what shows up when all of those loves are humming along in this beautiful melody and harmony and working together in the ways that we hope they would. What do we see when that happens? I think divine fruit is actually what happens. Maybe some of you have heard this as fruit of the Spirit, same thing. So as I was thinking about this, I couldn't help but think about apple trees. Deb told me she's going to go pick apples at Robinette's, that it's peak here already, which is crazy. But I was thinking a little bit about my childhood because I grew up, if you don't know this about me, I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, in the middle of cornfields and beans and space to roam and gravel roads. And most of my extended family also lived on farms. So my grandparents' farm, which was, down this gravel road, over the river, around the bend, this is how we gave directions. Dating was funny in high school. My grandparents' farm had an apple grove on their property. And one of my favorite days every year was apple harvest day. We would gather at Grandma and Grandpa's house, harvest all the apples, pick up all the ones that were on the ground. We would make apple cider, and we would can applesauce. It was great fun when I actually was old enough to use the press to make the cider or to be able to use the applesauce maker, as I called it as a kid. I saw once my mom using the applesauce maker, food mill, for tomatoes or something like that. I was not okay. This is not okay. It was applesauce. That's all it was for. But it was one of my favorite days of the year. Did I complain about the work? Probably. But today, all I remember was the joy of coming together and doing this work together in the best tasting apple cider and applesauce you will ever have. Was it actually the best? I don't know, but in my mind, it absolutely was. But there were some years that there just weren't very many apples, right? We didn't get as many jars of applesauce, and it was gone far too soon, and then we had to buy that store-bought stuff that just wasn't nearly as good. I didn't think about why much when I was a kid. It just was, right? But I've been thinking about it a little bit as I was thinking about fruit this week. Why were some years better than others for apples? Of course, we know these things. What does a tree need to produce good fruit? Friends, what does a tree need to produce good fruit? Ah, excellent. Oh, it's number 2. I can't put it up yet. What? Rain. You got number 3. Who's going to have number 1? Sunshine. Okay, weather. I had weather as rain and sunshine. Anybody else? Think low on the tree. Yeah, roots. There we go. Oh, see, now I can put roots up. All of these things come together to produce good fruit, right? When these things are in perfect harmony, we get a great harvest of apples and cider and applesauce. But when there's a drought or too much rain, when the soil isn't well fertilized or when the roots have been damaged, we get less fruit. Not none, but certainly less. So I wonder if the same might be true of our spiritual lives. If our roots and soil and weather are all humming along in perfect harmony, we see an abundance of fruit. If those 3 loves that we talked about, the love of God and neighbor and self, are all humming along in perfect harmony, we see an abundance of fruit. Galatians 5 gives us this description of the abundance of fruit. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. We'll come back to that in a little bit. When all of those loves aren't quite humming along together, when something is wrong with our soil or roots or weather, when something is off, we see less fruit. Again, not none, but certainly less. Sometimes this is because something has happened to rock our world. We as a community have been grieving Jeff's loss this week. I have to pause and say thank you for all the ways that you showed up for this family this week. And I know when we send out that meal train, you'll jump on it and you will support this family as well. It is beautiful to be a part of a community that loves well. Chris and I have had the privilege of being near to the family this week. And indeed, it is a privilege. It's messy, and I never know what to say because there aren't right words to say. But being invited into that fragile space is absolutely a privilege. So it would be really easy for me to stand up here and say, last week I bore less fruit. Okay, it was kind of true because something was off, right? Because of loss and sadness and anger, let's admit that that's real too. I had far less capacity for tending to anything other than grief. My own, our collective grief, the family's grief. So I missed some things off my to-do list. I called in the pizza order for tonight a whole day late. Don't worry, JV's is gracious and they're wonderful and there will be food. I knew that one was not one that I could get wrong this week. I didn't put a social media post out for my collaborative job that I'm trying to be really regular about. All understandable, right, in a week like this, and I've given myself plenty of grace for them, and probably quite a few other things that I haven't even realized I've missed yet. But there are other things, too, that I've noticed, not just on my to-do list, only because I was thinking about fruit and bearing fruit. I was far less patient with one of my kids who needed my attention, and they called me out on it because they're teenagers, and they're good at that. So I noticed, and I had the opportunity to apologize and repair that relationship in the moment, and it was a really lovely moment. But it reminded me of seminary days when I was far too short with my family far too often because I didn't have capacity to hold all the things. Again, understandable, explainable, but it's not how I want to live. I want to live a life where these things are far more present than they are not. So when these big things happen, we can understand why less than optimal fruit shows up, right? But what about when there is no crisis? When there is no extra anything? When life is just humming along? Why then do we seem to sometimes bear less fruit? The scriptures give us pretty extensive list of the opposite of bearing fruit in the same chapter in Galatians 5. Verses 19 to 21 say this. Brace yourself. When you follow the desires of your sinful nature, the results are very clear. Sexual immorality, impurity, lustful pleasures, idolatry, sorcery, hostility, quarreling, jealousy, outbursts of anger, selfish ambition, dissension, envy, division, drunkenness, wild parties, and other sins like these. Whew, that is quite a list. And it is a very specific list, isn't it? Absolutely, it was written to a specific group of people for a particular reason. There was something going on that this was written to talk about. But I think we can learn from it too, right? So what do we do with a list like this? What do we do with these things that sometimes show up? Do we feel guilt and shame about it all? I don't think that's helpful. Because at some point, we'll just kind of begin to hide the bad. If we just try a little harder and live into the good and avoid the bad, we might succeed for a little while. But it's also somewhat empty because it's only this outward action, right? And not internal change. It's not actually addressing the things that might be off. The roots, the weather, the soil. So I wonder if these two very contrasting lists can maybe help to serve as a self-check point for us. If things like jealousy and selfishness and envy are showing up in our lives, it's not because we're a bad person. Those things creep into all of our lives at some point, right? If we're honest and able to lay them down, we can move forward. All of those things are also probably a product of something deeper, just like the fruit tree. So if the roots and the soil and the weather are not conducive to bearing fruit, we'll actually see rot and decay. It doesn't lead to life or goodness or flourishing at all. Those things lead to shame, to disconnectedness, to unhealth. So we need to be honest and address those things if we want to bear fruit. I grew up hearing this list of fruit as the thing to achieve, right? And if you didn't see those beautiful things in your life, well, you just had to try harder, be better, push down the negative impulses, and do better. Sounds simple, right? I wish it was so simple, because I tried and tried and tried that really hard as a kid. But some of those other things still crept in. And then I just felt like an awful person. So trying harder didn't work. Trying harder, I think, actually might be legalism creeping in. Earlier in Galatians 5, Paul talks about legalism, and we talked about that a couple of weeks ago as well. Paul says, make sure you stay free and live a life of freedom. So don't let the legalism of you have to do this creep in. So, what if I had gotten curious about what is going on under the surface instead of just trying harder? What if I had stopped to notice where my connections with God and with others and with my own self, with nature, were present and where they weren't? Maybe I wouldn't have been so hard on myself, and maybe there would have been space for grace instead of so much judgment. Space for noticing where things should and could change. And maybe it would have given me a little bit more grace for others as well. I should probably stop using past tense words here and say that this is still hard. I am 46, not a teenager, not a child anymore, and it is still hard. Because I like to believe that I can just try my way into being a better person. I'm guessing some of you would like to believe the same thing. Without all that slowing down and noticing what's going on beneath the surface. But it doesn't work that way. I'm reminded of something I wrote in one of our shared Google Docs a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about self-care. You know, that thing that I haven't done in the last 2 weeks since I wrote it in that Google Doc. So here's my nudge to go do that. And maybe it's a nudge for you as well. A nudge to simply let God's Spirit remind us of who we are and how we can best live that out. Richard Rohr has a really beautiful quote, of course he does, about the fruit of the Spirit. He says this: when we live by the Spirit, our lives are marked by the fruit of the Spirit. It's not about trying harder, but allowing God's presence to transform us from the inside out. Fruit doesn't just happen by trying harder. Fruit happens when we are connected to the divine source of goodness and love and beauty. It takes intentionality, it takes practice, it takes cultivating for sure. Let's look at the fruit itself. Let's talk about some of these beautiful, beautiful things. The goodness and beauty that show up when we live by the Spirit, as Rohr said. Again, Galatians 5, starting with verse 16, says, "My counsel is this, live freely, animated and motivated by God's Spirit. Then you won't feel the compulsions of selfishness, for there's a root of sinful self-interest in us that is at odds with a free spirit, just as the free spirit is incompatible with selfishness." I clicked on the wrong slide, so now I'm just going to skip to it. It's fine. Let the Holy Spirit guide your lives. And the Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against these things. As I started to think about these different words, there's so much goodness and beauty. Like, I can't read that without bringing a smile to my face. I can't read that without breathing deeply and resting in those things. So I started looking up definitions, and then I thought, nah, I know some people who could do a better job than an online dictionary. So we are going to take a couple of moments. We're going to get together in groups, and y'all are going to define these words, okay? So there are 9 words, so we'll let the online folks have one together, and then you all are going to break out into like 8 groups because there's 8 words. So I see a little group back there. Can you just do this? Can you get into groups? And then if we have to split, so small, 5 or 6 people, so a couple of rows here, a couple of rows there, scoot together. CJ, you might have to come back here with Sarah and Elliot. And then I'll give you a word, okay? The first group that gets together gets love, so go. See, I see it. Excellent. Your love. Excellent. Your joy. Are you your peace? Love, joy, peace. Who's a group? Excellent. You are patience. Oh. You are kindness. Wow, never mind. You're fired. We have booze. All right. You are goodness. Online folks, you are gentleness, and we'll do self-control together. Look at you. Well done. Online folks, you are doing gentleness. The overachievers are taking 2. Love it. Do it. With the phone? Are we looking up a definition? No, that's cheating. You're smarter than phones. Oh, excellent. All right, you have like 30 seconds left. Do you have a direction? All right, it's getting quiet. Wherever you are is good, okay? I've heard, we're not ready, but it's okay. We'll be fine. All right, love, friends in the back. Jesus. How very Sunday school of you. Well done. Acceptance and the desire for the best of others. Do you know that the word in Greek is the agape word, which means to will the good of another? So, well done. Yeah, yep, you do that. Excellent, excellent. Love it. All right, we'll come back to you later. Well done. Joy, friends? Go for it, JP.
We kind of classified joy as like a more sincere and genuine feeling that you kind of have to search for.
You have to search for joy.
Yeah. Whereas happiness is something that can kind of just come along. Joy is a much more intentional and like sincere feeling, I suppose.
A much more intentional and sincere feeling than happiness. All right, I like it. Peace. Who has peace? You do.
We have the absence of stress, discord, violence, pressures, fear, in the presence of harmony, shalom, flourishing, rest, contentment, and trust.
Can I just read that out loud? Because I won't remember all those words. It was beautiful. Peace. Look, they had a whiteboard. Look at that. The absence of, she found one. The absence of stress, discord, violence, pressures, and fear, and the presence of harmony, shalom, flourishing, rest, contentment, and trust. Whoo! Can you just snap a photo of that and send it to me? Because that's going to be my background for my phone every once in a while now. Patience. Who has patience?
We said long-suffering, enduring through difficulty, willing to just be, waiting, specifically waiting for screen time.
Waiting for screen time. There we go. Long-suffering, endurance. Dying slowly. That's what waiting for screen time is sometimes. Oh, I love the teenage editions. I love it. Kindness. That was the groaning over here. Did we, Sarah? I'm just going to trust that you held them up here. Is that true?
So we talked about kindness as being more than just niceness or being courteous, that there's an element of awareness and recognizing someone's need and then taking affirmative and maybe sacrificial action to meet that need.
Awareness of need, sacrificing so that you can meet a need. Yeah? Beautiful. Action, action. Well done. You booed. You did a good job. Very proud of you. Very proud of you. Goodness. Goodness? Aha, there we go. Who's got goodness?
You guys want to report? You want to share?
Nobody.
Okay.
Julian's got it. Hey, buddy.
I love spending time together. Do you know what I did when I had some special time on Friday?
What?
I built something, a thinking thing, and I made a fireplace.
Oh, my goodness. Goodness. Julian just did it. Goodness. I love spending time together. Kelly, do you want to add to that?
Nate had a very good inspiration that I think was different than a lot of us had thought about, and was, I think, really applicable. So thinking about fruit and good fruit.
Yeah.
The concept of like fresh fruit. What does that mean? The concept of that versus maybe human who is going around having time together. So
Both are true. The concept of fresh fruit, right? And how good that is compared to something that's maybe sat in a grocery store for a little while. Yeah. Love it. Faithfulness. Who did I forget faithfulness? Did nobody have that one? All right. Okay, great. Gentleness was online. Brian, can you read me that one again?
Yeah, if you're soft, thoughtful, slow, being kind to each other, and living in the flow of the Spirit.
Soft, thoughtful, slow, living in the flow of the Spirit. Love that. Self-control. Being satisfied with enough. Yeah. Okay, since I skipped faithfulness, throw out some words. When we say the word faithfulness, what comes out? Loyal, steady, showing up. Ooh. Reliable. Yeah. Okay, let me ask you a question. This conversation and hearing everybody's input and ideas, besides the introverts in the room who just want to go sit back and listen, how does it make you feel? How do those concepts and words make you feel? It brought a smile to my face too, Sarah. Thank you. Just listening. Yeah, just listening to everybody talking. And yeah. Hopeful. Yeah. Longing for this to be. Yeah. So if I would ask you to do this same exercise with that other list that we read earlier, it would feel different, right? It would probably not feel so hopeful. It would not feel joyful. Because there's no law against these things. These things bring life. There's no need for moderation of this fruit because it is good, it is fresh, it is nourishing. It brings flourishing to us, to those around us, to the created earth. It speaks of the world that's full of love, of the good and true and genuine love, right? Not just this superficial kind of love. It's a world that hums along in perfect harmony, where mutual flourishing is the norm and not the exception. One of the songs at Jeff's memorial service this week was a U2 song. How great is that? It was one of his favorites. It's called The Streets Have No Name. If you don't know it, go listen to it. It's a song that dreams of a world of unity instead of division, a world where everyone is equal and treated as such. It's a world of mutual flourishing. And I'll be honest, when my cynical side creeps in, which is often, I don't think that kind of world is actually possible. But what if it is? What if a world could exist that streets didn't need names because there is no division? That those on the west side of Jefferson have the same access to opportunity that those on the east side do? That those on the north side of Burton have the same access to opportunity as those on the south side? Or whatever street that is in your neighborhood. There's divisions wherever we go. But what if they weren't real? What if they weren't true anymore? How could that beautiful vision of a world not be true if our world was marked with love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control? How could that world not be true if we were people who were marked with these things most of the time? And how could others not be curious and want the same? In a world that can sometimes feel so hopeless, this list of fruit brings hope. And it's good to know that we're actually a part of something way bigger than just ourselves, of something that is actually bringing transformation, of something that bears fruit. And not just fruit so that we can be satisfied, that we can be filled, but fruit that brings nourishing and flourishing for all those around us. Fruit that actually makes our world a better place. The fruit that is abundant and limitless. So we come to this table. Week after week, we come to this table. This table that is full of goodness and fruit, and I hear kids coming back who are full of goodness and delight and joy. We drink this grape juice each and every week together. I almost grabbed apple juice this week, but I thought it might have been a little too much on the nose. I maybe should have. Today, for me, this table represents hope. It shows us in very tangible forms what happens when one act of kindness spreads. Chris says this often about this table. Many grains from many fields come together. Many grapes from many vineyards come together. But it starts with one. And then they come together to produce goodness and bounty. So may this today be our hope, that our small acts of goodness and beauty and joy and love and kindness, that all of those can create bountiful acts of goodness and love together. We need a few volunteers to come and help serve communion. Who would like to help us serve today? I don't believe nobody. Sarah's coming up. Laura's coming up. We need 2 more. Can we have 2 more people come? Do you guys want to go to the back? Okay. There's that. There is a gluten-free option up front here. The fully glutinous will be in the back. You'll take the bread and I'll hold the cup. Friends, we say this. You're going to have to switch. You have to go on that side. My brain can't handle the not right order today. Can't do it. Most days I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Not today. We say every week, this is an invitation. You are invited to come and taste and feel the goodness of God. It is not an expectation, so if for whatever reason you need to stay in your seat today, then stay in your seat. That is okay. Friends, the gifts of God for the people of God. So we hold these gifts in our hand. We can feel them, we'll taste them, We'll hold them as we go into the world. But for this moment, may this be your reminder that you are people of love and goodness and kindness and gentleness and all of those good things that bring flourishing. May you be nourished by this piece of bread. Drink this cup, all the grapes that came together from the good harvest, the good soil and weather and roots that produced grapes to bring sweetness and joy to your life. In this moment, may you feel those things as you drink the cup. We'll pass this basket around for empty cups, if you would like. The band is going to come back on up. The kiddos made their way back in. As we do most every week, we wanted to check in with the kids to see how your time at Branch Kids was. Tell me something you learned or did or loved. Yeah. You what? You made a craft? What did you make? All right, I see black paper and I see aluminum foil. What? It looks like stars to me, am I right? Yeah. Did you all make one? Oh, can you all, if you have it, would you hold it up so everybody can see your stars? Wow, look at that, y'all. Those are beautiful. What else? Anybody else have something that you learned about maybe why you made stars? I did it. I love it. I love it, Elliot. I did it. Beautiful. If I remember right, you were talking about how we are all connected, right? And those stars give us an image of that, of our connectedness. Yeah? Connected, do you remember that word? Did that come up today? Yes, I got a head nod. Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us and for bringing joy into our space. Let's stand together and sing one more song together as the band leads us.
Will your grace run out if I let you down? 'Cause all I know is how to run. 'Cause I am a sinner. If it's not one thing, it's another. Caught up in words, tangled in lies. You are a savior, and you take brokenness aside and make it beautiful, beautiful. Will you call me child when I tell you lies? 'Cause all I know is how to cry. 'Cause I am a sinner. If it's not one thing, it's another. Caught up in words, tangled in lies. You are a savior, and you take brokenness aside
it's not one thing, it's another. It is easy to get stuck there, isn't it? It's easy to get stuck in those things that creep in, like jealousy and envy and bitterness. It's easy to get stuck there. But if we can lay that all down, and we can root ourselves in the goodness of God, in the goodness of the flow of the Spirit. I love that phrase that somebody said earlier. God can make beauty out of all of that. And we can make beauty out of the world with all of that. Let's be those people this week and always. Thanks for being here, everybody. We hope to see many of you tonight. And if you have questions about branch students, come talk to one of us. Thanks for being here, everybody. Go in peace.